Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Here's the pattern drafting of this stylish asymmetric structure sleeve and neckline. My name is Adiola. If this looks like what you're interested in, come along and let us draft this together. First, you need to fold your pattern in two. I'll start with the front pattern. The first line is the dress length of 40 inches. Here is the starting point, and from there I'll mark a straight line. My first line is the shoulder to the bust point of 10.5 inches. The next point is the under bust of 13.5, waist length is 16, and my hip of 24 inches, and the full dress length. So I'll highlight all the vertical lines. I'll mark out 3 inches neck width, and I'll take half of my shoulder of 7 inches. Then from the shoulder measurement, I'll come down by 1 inch slope and connect it to the neck width. After marking that, I'll measure my chest line. To get that, divide your round bust by 6 and add 1.5. Mark what you have from the shoulder slope. Then I'll mark 7.5 inches and make it into a straight line. Repeat your half shoulder measurement on the chest line. I'll mark 7.5 inches and I'll make a straight line. Measure what you have on the line and divide it by 2. So I have 7.5 inches. So that will give me 3.75 once I divide the midpoint by 2. And then I'll come in by half inch. Now to the round bust, you divide it by 4. So I'll take 9 inches on the chest line. My bust is 36 inches. Once I divide it by 4, that's 9 inches. Then I'll add 1 inch allowance. I'll connect with my armhole curve ruler to the midpoint and back to the shoulder. I'll label out all the lines. Here is the bust point, the under bust, waist, and the hip length. Then divide your nipple to nipple measurement by 2. Take it from the bust to the hip points. I'll take 4 inches measurements to the hip and mark it to a straight line. Then from your bust line, come down by 1 inch, and on your waist, mark half inch on both sides. For a bigger bust, extend it to 0.75 inches on both sides. Now connect from the 1 inch that you came down from the bust to the half inch mark of your waist. From the hip point, go up by 1.5 inches to 2 inches and connect it back to the dart on the waist. Moving to the round circumference, the next measurement is the under bust. You divide it by 4, so mine will be 7.3 inches if I divide it. Then I'll replace back my dart intake and mark my 1 inch allowance. My waist is 30. If I divide it by 4, I'll take 7.5 inches and also replace the 1 inch dart plus 1 inch allowance. Then mark your round hip after dividing it by 4. I'm going to measure 10 inches on the hip. Note that there is no dart at the hip length. So add your sewing allowance. Now I'm going to connect all the measurements from the bust to the hip. Repeat the measurements you have on your hip on your baseline of your dress, minus 1 to 2 inches. In the thumbnail, the dress is fitted and is pencil. So I have 11 inches on my hip. I'll subtract just 1 inch and I'll connect it back to the dress length. Before I move to the asymmetric neckline, I'll measure my bust darts. To get yours, mark the difference between the shoulder to waist for your dress in front and shoulder to waist for the back. Whatever it is, impinch it here. So mine is 1 inch. I'll mark it on the bust point. The difference varies, so please check to be sure. So I'll connect it back to the bust, so use your tape to hold it. For the asymmetric neck, I'll use a pencil first to mark out the neckline. So you need a tracing wheel for the neck. The middle part is high, so I'll start the measurement around the neck. The next asymmetric is smaller and it went lower than the midpoint. So put that in mind, and it's also a cut together sleeve. Get your tracing wheel and a pencil to get the desired result. From your starting point, mark 3 to 4 inches. This depends on how you want the neck for the asymmetric, so I'll measure 3.5. Here is the 3.5 inches marked on the center of the dress. The 3.5 is still covered for me. So trace it downward slope from the 3.5 inches mark. Next is the smaller curved neckline. It is not really as pointy as the center line. Draw it out and you connect it to the armhole. Make an extension above the armhole line. Take as much as you want for the sleeve. My paper is not enough to accommodate the sleeves. Make room for more space for easy movement. Connect it back to the chest line. Just draw a curved shape and blend it back to the round circumference. I'll use my tracing wheel to mark out the curve. Please extend the sleeve. I couldn't do much here. So I'll start with my marker on the right side. So this is the first attempt. Trace it back to your circumference point. So I'll trace it to have exactly the same thing on the other side when I'll spread out my pattern. So what I'm doing now is I'm using my tracing wheel to mark out the asymmetric line so it can show on the other side. I'll open up my paper and see what is showing on the right side of the pattern. I'll make it more visible with the marker. So this is the first attempt. I'm not satisfied with this, so I'll try another asymmetric line again. I'll also trace this part out to have a complete drafting. For the second asymmetric line, I'll come down from the shoulder line by 3.5 inches again, and you can mark or measure what you prefer. Okay, so I decided to use the marker. I came down further after the 3 inches measurement, unlike the first asymmetric line I traced out. Just come down by 5 to 6 inches here. Now I'm tracing out the smaller asymmetric curve, following what I have in the picture. From there, mark it further from the armhole to get the sleeve. Extend it to accommodate the sleeve. I'll connect it back to the ending of the paper and draw out the curve at the side sleeve and connect it back to the chest line. I'll go again and trace the neckline to see what I have on the other side. This is me readjusting this asymmetric line to my desire. Next, I'll open up my paper. So I prefer this second trial. Your sleeve should also have this curved design. Check to be sure the asymmetric is fine before cutting it out. So this is the line I'll cut out. I'll also use this pattern to trace the asymmetric for the back. I'll go ahead and highlight this side properly. So this is where I'll start cutting the asymmetric line from. So I'm going to start cutting it from this side. So you can see why I said fold your pattern in two. So when you open up your neckline, you can see the visual asymmetric. So you can always go back to readjust it. I'll put this aside and draft the back pattern. Before cutting the front pattern, ensure you fold your bust dart and blend back any lapses. Now to the back pattern, mark your starting point, your zipper allowance and dress length. The only difference with the back is the zipper, then the waist length. For the front pattern, the waist length is 16 inches. I folded in 1 inch for that. Then for the back, the waist is 17 inches. The back is 16 inches. So measure yours. So mark the beginning of your pattern. Also mark out the zipper allowance of your choice. Repeat your bust length. So my waist length is 17 inches and my hip measurement, I'll take that. Then I'll mark out all the vertical lines. My waist length is 17 inches. Take note of that. Measure 3 inches for the neck width, followed by your half shoulder measurement. Take that after your zipper measurement. Right here is the zipper. After that, come down by 1 inch on the half shoulder measurement for the slope and connect it to the neck width. Repeat your chest measurement after the 1 inch slope. Then I'll take mine, which is 7.5 inches, and I'll mark it into a straight line. Repeat your half shoulder measurement on your chest line. Divide your midpoint measurement by 2. Mine is 3.5 inches. Also divide your round bust by 4. Mark it on the chest line. Mine is 9 inches plus the 1 inch sewing allowance. Then I'll connect the round bust to the midpoint of the armhole line. I'll go ahead and mark out all the lines. So here is the bust, the waist, and the hip point. Mark half of your nipple to nipple measurement. I'll take 4 inches for mine from the bust and I'll mark it into a straight line. On the bust, come down by 1 inch and take half inch on both sides of your waist. Also from the hip, go up by 1 to 1.5 inches and connect all the points, following what you see me do. Measure quarter of your waist, divide it by 4 and replace back the 1 inch dart and your desired sewing allowance. I took 1 inch for my allowance. For the hip, also divide your circumference by 4. I took 10 inches. So remember, note that at the hip also. So I also measure 1 inch sewing allowance and mark out all the points. I'll measure what I have on my hip and subtract 1 inch from it and input it on the base of the dress pattern. So I'll connect it from the hip to the full dress length. Take your front pattern and place it on top of the back pattern to trace out the asymmetric neckline. Allow the chest line on the front and the back pattern align properly. Place your pattern after the zipper allowance. Before that, I will eliminate the half-inch zipper bulge on the waist and I'll connect it back to the neckline. I'll also connect it back from the waist into the hip and I'll replace back the half-inch bulge back here and reconnect the new line. Now place your front pattern after the zipper allowance, so it must be on the chest line. You can either use a pencil biro or trace the neckline with a tracing wheel. The lines will be obvious, so for this tutorial I'll use a marker to trace out the asymmetric neck. I'll highlight the neckline to make it more visible. Now you can decide if you want a different neck for the back. I haven't decided what neck type I want for the back dress. For a different back, take your neck width and come down for the depth. Now I'll go ahead to cut out the back pattern. I won't cut the sleeve exactly the same way I did for the front. I need to add more to it to accommodate it for easy movement. Cut out the half-inch zipper bulge on your waist. Whatever neckline you decide, connect it back into the sleeve. Then for this asymmetry, cut it exactly the way I cut out the front pattern. So here is the front and back pattern. I'll readjust this part because I feel it's too sharp. Please guys, like this video, share it, and if you have any question, put it in the comment section. Let me re-explain the back neck. So I came down by 3.5 inches for the front pattern. So mark the same measurement for the back. This is the 3.5 inches. Mark it into a straight line and reconnect it back to the sleeve. I'll add more to the sleeve when cutting the fabric. This is why I left some allowances here. So either cut it following the straight line or the curved neck. So this concludes the pattern drafting of this stylish curved neckline. The next tutorial will be the sewing part.